You finish drinking your morning coffee on a Tuesday morning, and instead of rinsing the cup and putting it in the sink, you leave it on the table. You think, "I'll get to it later." Then you notice an email notification pop up, but you tell yourself you will reply when you have more time. A text message arrives and you glance at it quickly but decide not to respond right now. By the end of the day, there are dirty dishes on the counter, unanswered emails waiting for you, and half-finished chores piling up in every corner of your life. Each task is small, but together they create this heavy feeling that you are always behind. You start to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and even guilty for not handling things right away. But what if there was one simple trick that could stop this cycle? What if you could take control of these little tasks before they pile up and drain your energy? This problem is so common because most of us underestimate how quickly small tasks add up. We look at a dish or a piece of paper or a short message, and we think it is no big deal. We believe that leaving it for later is harmless. But later, all of those tiny things gather into one giant snowball of procrastination. It feels like you need an entire free day just to catch up. And the truth is, it is not that those tasks are difficult, it is that our brains get weighed down by the mental clutter of constantly remembering them. Every time you think, "I should have done that already," you burn a little energy and increase your stress. That is why people often feel tired and distracted even when they have not done much. The small, unfinished things keep nagging at the back of their mind. Now here is the good news. There is a simple productivity hack that cuts through this problem almost instantly. It is called the 2-minute rule. The rule is this: if a task takes less than 2 minutes to do, do it immediately. That is all. No long planning, no waiting for the perfect time, no overthinking. If you see something that can be finished in under 2 minutes, you just handle it right away. Wash the cup. Reply to the short email. Take out the trash. Hang up your coat. These are all quick actions, and the 2-minute rule says that the fastest way to deal with them is to just get them done now instead of adding them to your mental to-do list. You might be wondering, why does this matter? Why would 2 minutes make such a difference? The magic is not only in saving time, but in reducing the weight of unfinished business on your mind. When you get rid of those tiny tasks immediately, your brain no longer has to store them. That frees up mental space to focus on bigger and more meaningful projects. Think of it like cleaning your desk. If you take a moment to clear away the clutter, you suddenly have more room to actually work. The 2-minute rule does the same thing, but for your brain. It prevents all those little things from building up into one giant mess that feels impossible to clean. Let me give you some everyday examples of how this works. Imagine you come home and toss your shoes in the hallway. That takes about 3 seconds, but if you leave them there, soon the hallway looks messy, and later you spend 10 minutes cleaning the whole space. Instead, if you just take the extra 2 minutes to put your shoes back in place right away, the mess never even begins. Or think about your phone. You get a quick text that only needs a 1-sentence reply. If you answer immediately, it takes maybe 15 seconds. But if you delay, you risk forgetting, or you keep thinking about it all day. The mental distraction costs you far more than 2 minutes. Another example is handling paper clutter. You open your mail, see a bill, and instead of tossing it in a pile, you spend 2 minutes filing it where it belongs. Later, you will not have to dig through a mountain of paper to find it. These are small moments, but together they create a life that feels lighter, calmer, and more under control. There is also science behind why this hack is so effective. Psychologists have found something called the Zeigarnik effect, named after a Russian researcher named Bluma Zeigarnik. She discovered that people tend to remember unfinished tasks much more vividly than tasks they have already completed. Waiters in a restaurant, for example, could remember every detail of the orders they had not yet delivered. But as soon as the table was served, the memory faded. This shows us that our brains keep holding on to unfinished business. Every undone task, no matter how small, becomes mental clutter. But if you finish it right away, your brain lets go and you instantly feel lighter. The 2-minute rule is powerful because it uses this psychological truth to your advantage. By completing the small things immediately, you prevent them from haunting you later. You can also see the 2-minute rule in action in the lives of highly productive people. Many professionals, from CEOs to writers to athletes, rely on this principle without even realizing it has a name. They know that momentum is everything. When you take care of the small things right away, you build a rhythm of action. That rhythm carries over into the bigger, harder projects. For example, if a writer tells himself, "I will just write one sentence," that tiny action often turns into an entire page. By lowering the barrier of entry to just 2 minutes, you trick your brain into getting started, and once you start, it is much easier to keep going. So here's the takeaway. Life is full of little tasks that seem insignificant, but together they can weigh you down more than you realize. By following the 2-minute rule, you can clear away those small burdens before they pile up. It keeps your space cleaner, your mind calmer, and your focus sharper. You will notice that you spend less time worrying about what you have not done, and more time actually doing the things that matter. So the next time you see a cup on the table, a short message waiting, or a small task that can be wrapped up in under 2 minutes, do not wait. Just do it now. Your future self will thank you. You wake up in the morning and tell yourself, "Today is going to be productive." You sit at your desk with a long to-do list in front of you. You start with one task, but before finishing it, you remember an email you need to reply to. Halfway through that email, you glance at your phone and scroll through messages. Then you decide to work on another project, but by the time the day ends, you realize you have been busy for hours without actually completing the things that mattered most. It feels like you are constantly moving but not really progressing. If this sounds familiar, you are not alone. Many people go through days like this where energy is scattered and focus feels impossible. But what if there was a simple method that could turn this chaos into clarity, giving you both structure and freedom in your day? The truth is, most of us believe productivity is about doing as many tasks as possible. We think that if we keep checking off little boxes on our to-do list, we will eventually feel accomplished. But the problem is that our attention does not work like that. Jumping from task to task creates something called context switching, which is basically the mental toll of constantly changing gears. It is like trying to drive a car while switching between 10 different destinations every 10 minutes. You will waste gas, get lost, and end up frustrated. What makes this even harder is that distractions are everywhere. Notifications, social media, unplanned calls, or even a random thought can pull us away. And once we are off track, it takes a long time to get back into the flow. This is why so many people feel like their days slip away from them, even though they were busy the whole time. Now here is the good news. There is a simple method that helps cut through the noise. It is called time blocking. Time blocking is the idea of scheduling your day into specific chunks of time where you focus on one thing only. Instead of just having a to-do list, you actually assign a start time and an end time for each activity. It is like giving every task its own appointment in your calendar. Imagine saying to yourself, from 9 to 11, I will work only on writing. From 11 to 12, I will answer emails. From 1 to 3, I will prepare for tomorrow's presentation. By doing this, you create a clear structure for your day, which helps you stay focused and avoid the trap of multitasking. The beauty of time blocking is that it matches the way our brains naturally work. Our minds like boundaries. When you tell yourself you have 2 hours to finish a task, you are more likely to concentrate deeply because you know there is a limit. Without boundaries, tasks tend to expand and take longer than they should. This is known as Parkinson's law, which says that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. By giving your tasks clear blocks of time, You fight against this tendency and get more done in less time. Another benefit is that time blocking reduces decision fatigue. You do not have to keep asking yourself, "What should I do next?" because the plan is already set. This frees up mental energy for actually doing the work rather than constantly deciding what the work should be. Think of a day without time blocking as a messy kitchen. Everything is scattered on the counter. You spend more time searching for ingredients than actually cooking. Time blocking is like neatly organizing all the ingredients in bowls before you start. When it is time to cook, you simply grab what you need and focus fully on the recipe. The same applies to your workday. Once you have blocked your time, you do not waste mental energy figuring things out. You just step into the block and give it your full attention. The result is smoother, calmer, and more productive days. Now you might be wondering, does this really work in real life, or is it just another productivity trick that sounds good in theory? Well, let us look at one of the most famous examples. Elon Musk, who manages multiple companies, has often been noted for using time blocking. He breaks his entire day into 5-minute blocks, carefully assigning each block to a specific task or meeting. This might sound extreme, but it shows the power of the method. Even if you do not go as far as dividing your day into 5-minute chunks, you can still see huge benefits by simply dedicating larger blocks of time to important work. Another example comes from Cal Newport, the author of the book Deep Work, who popularized time blocking as a way to protect focused, distraction-free time for high-quality work. He argues that in a world full of interruptions, people who can carve out deep, uninterrupted blocks of time will produce work that truly stands out. Studies also back this up. Research in psychology has shown that multitasking actually lowers productivity and increases stress. One study from the American Psychological Association found that shifting between tasks can cost as much as 40% of productive time. That means almost half of your day could be slipping away simply because of switching back and forth. Time blocking directly tackles this issue by giving your brain one clear thing to focus on, reducing wasted time and boosting efficiency. So how can you start applying this in your own life? The simplest way is to open your calendar and look at tomorrow. Instead of writing a to-do list, assign time slots for your tasks. Do not just say work on essay. Instead, block out 2 hours from 9 to 11 and label it essay writing. Then protect that time as if it were a meeting with someone important. Turn off notifications, put away distractions, and commit fully. After that block ends, take a short break, then move on to the next scheduled block. Over time, this habit will train your brain to associate certain hours with certain tasks, making it easier to focus. In the end, time blocking is more than just a scheduling trick. It is a way to reclaim control of your day. It transforms productivity from a vague hope into a concrete plan. Instead of drifting through your day, reacting to whatever comes up, you move with intention. Imagine finishing a day knowing that the most important tasks are not only started but actually completed. Imagine reducing the stress of constant decision-making and instead experiencing the calm focus that comes from knowing exactly what to do and when to do it. That is the power of time blocking. It takes the same 24 hours we all have and turns them into something more valuable, focused, meaningful, and effective time. You sit down at your desk with the best intentions. You tell yourself, today I'm finally going to finish that report, study for the exam, or maybe just clean up my inbox. You open your laptop, ready to work. But then you glance at your phone. A notification pops up. You think, I'll just check it real quick. 10 minutes later, you are scrolling endlessly. When you finally snap back, you try to focus, but your mind feels scattered. You stare at the screen, not knowing where to begin. The work that should take an hour suddenly stretches into half a day, and by the time evening comes, you are drained, frustrated, and asking yourself, Where did all the time go? If this sounds familiar, you are not alone. Most of us struggle with the same problem, staying focused for long periods of time. Our attention span is constantly under attack from distractions, whether it is our phone, social media, or just our own wandering thoughts. We often sit for hours pretending to work, but in reality our mind keeps drifting away. And when we try to force ourselves to keep going, it feels like pushing a heavy car uphill. We feel exhausted, but not productive. The truth is, humans are not built to focus deeply for endless hours without a break. But many people don't realize that. They believe that the only way to be productive is to sit down and grind until the task is finished, no matter how long it takes. That belief is one of the main reasons so many of us burn out or procrastinate. But what if I told you there was a simple technique that could help you stay focused, finish tasks faster, and actually feel energized instead of drained? A technique so straightforward that you can try it right now without needing fancy apps or complicated systems. It is called the Pomodoro Technique. The Pomodoro Technique is one of the most popular productivity hacks in the world, and for good reason. At its core, it is a time management method that breaks your work into small, focused intervals. Traditionally, you work for 25 minutes, then take a short 5-minute break. After 4 of these work sessions, you take a longer break, usually around 15 to 30 minutes. Each work session is called a pomodoro, which is the Italian word for tomato. The technique was invented in the 1980s by Francesco Cirillo, who used a kitchen timer shaped like a tomato when he first experimented with it. Now you might be thinking, why would chopping my time into little chunks make me more productive? Shouldn't I just power through and get it done in one sitting? Here's the secret. The Pomodoro Technique works because it matches how our brain naturally pays attention. Most people cannot stay fully focused for hours straight, but nearly everyone can concentrate for 25 minutes. Knowing that a break is always around the corner makes the work feel less intimidating. It is like telling your brain, don't worry, we only have to focus for a short sprint and then we can relax. That small shift completely changes the way you approach a task. Let's say you are writing an essay. Instead of staring at the blank page for hours, you tell yourself, okay, I only need to write for 1 Pomodoro. 25 minutes later, you might surprise yourself by having written a full page. After your 5-minute break, you come back refreshed and ready for another round. Or maybe you are studying for a test. Reading chapters of a textbook all afternoon sounds painful, but reading for just 1 Pomodoro feels manageable. Even if you do only 3 or 4 Pomodoros in a day, that is over an hour of focused study, which is far better than pretending to study for 5 hours while your mind is somewhere else. This technique also fights procrastination in a clever way. When a task feels overwhelming, we tend to delay it. But if we know we only need to commit for 25 minutes, it suddenly feels less scary. Anyone can handle 25 minutes. And here is the trick. Once you start, you often build momentum and keep going. The hardest part of work is usually just starting, and Pomodoro makes that start much easier. There is also science behind why it works. Research on attention shows that our brain has a natural rhythm of focus and rest. If we ignore those rhythms and force ourselves to work endlessly, our performance drops and we become more prone to mistakes. But when we take regular breaks, our brain uses that time to recover and consolidate what we just learned. This is why short bursts of focused work are often more effective than long stretches of distracted effort. In fact, many students, writers, and even software developers swear by this method. A famous example comes from the world of software engineering, where developers often face complex problems that require deep concentration. Many of them use the Pomodoro technique to stay sharp and avoid mental fatigue. They report being able to write better code in less time, simply because they are working in focused sprints rather than dragging tasks out for hours. Even big companies encourage their employees to use similar techniques to prevent burnout. Think about athletes for a moment. Runners do not sprint nonstop until they collapse. They train in intervals, pushing hard for a short period, then resting before going again. The Pomodoro Technique applies the same principle to your brain. You sprint with your focus for 25 minutes, then rest and repeat. Over time, this builds mental stamina and makes you far more productive without feeling drained. So next time you find yourself procrastinating, overwhelmed, or distracted, try this. Set a timer for 25 minutes and tell yourself, I'm just going to work until the timer rings. Give it your full focus, no phone, no distractions. When the timer goes off, stand up, stretch, or grab a drink. Then when you are ready, do it again. After 4 Pomodoros, reward yourself with a longer break. You might be surprised by how much you can get done using this simple method. The Pomodoro Technique turns work into a series of manageable sprints instead of a never-ending marathon. It makes starting easier, staying focused more natural, and finishing tasks far more satisfying. And the best part is, you can start right now, with nothing more than a timer and a willingness to try. So, are you ready to stop fighting against your brain and start working with it? The next time you sit down to study, write, or work, give the Pomodoro Technique a shot. You might just discover that the secret to productivity is not working harder or longer, but working smarter, one tomato at a time. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning with the best intentions. You tell yourself that today will be different, today you will be productive. You sit down at your desk, coffee in hand, and you look at your to-do list. There is that one big task staring at you, the one you have been avoiding. Maybe it is writing a report, maybe it is studying for an exam, maybe it is finishing a project that feels overwhelming. Instead of tackling it, you think, I will just check my email first. Then you answer a few messages, then you do a couple of small errands. Before you know it, half the day is gone and that one big task is still sitting there untouched. You feel stressed, guilty, and less motivated than ever. This is such a common cycle. We avoid the hardest or most important task because it feels uncomfortable. It is so much easier to do the little things that give us instant satisfaction. Checking social media, organizing our desk, responding to small requests. All of these feel productive in the moment, but deep down we know we are just procrastinating. The truth is, when the day ends, those little tasks do not really move us forward in life. The big challenging task is what truly matters, and that is the one we keep running away from. This is where a simple productivity hack comes in. It is called Eat the Frog. Yes, the name sounds strange, but that is exactly why it works. You will never forget it. The idea comes from a quote often attributed to Mark Twain. He supposedly said that if the first thing you do each morning is eat a live frog, you can go through the rest of the day knowing that nothing worse will happen. In other words, if you do the hardest thing first, the rest of the day feels easier by comparison. So what does eat the frog actually mean in everyday life? It means identifying the most important and often most challenging task on your list and doing it first thing in the day before anything else. Instead of starting with the small, comfortable tasks, you start with the one that has the biggest impact. It is about facing the thing you dread, getting it out of the way, and freeing yourself from the weight of procrastination. Why does this hack matter so much? Because procrastination is like a tax on your energy. When you avoid the big task, you carry it in the back of your mind all day. It drains your focus, adds stress, and makes you feel guilty. By eating the frog right away, you remove that mental burden. Your mind is clear, your energy is freed up, and you feel an instant sense of accomplishment. It sets a positive tone for the entire day. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a math exam tomorrow. You also have a pile of laundry to do, a few text messages to reply to, and a video you want to watch online. If you start with the laundry and the messages, sure, you will feel busy. but your exam will still be haunting you. If you instead start your day by spending 2 focused hours studying, that big weight lifts off your shoulders. Afterward, doing the laundry and replying to texts feels light and even enjoyable because the hardest part is already behind you. Another example. Picture someone working in an office. Their most important task is preparing a presentation for a meeting. But instead of starting with it, they spend the morning replying to emails and attending small meetings. By the afternoon, they are tired, their focus is lower, and the presentation still looms. If they had eaten the frog first thing in the morning, they would have given it their best energy and avoided the stress of last-minute work. The reason this hack works has also been studied by psychologists. There is a concept called decision fatigue. The more choices you make throughout the day, the harder it becomes to make good ones. That means if you save your most important task for later, your willpower and energy are already weaker. By doing it first, you are using your mind when it is freshest. Research from behavioral psychology has consistently shown that willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired with use. Eat the Frog leverages that by putting your strongest focus where it matters most. There are even real-world examples of people using this approach to achieve incredible success. Brian Tracy, a well-known productivity author, popularized Eat the Frog in his book of the same name. He observed that the most effective people are those who discipline themselves to tackle their top priorities first, while others waste their best hours on distractions. He argued that mastering this single habit could change the entire trajectory of your career and personal life. On a simpler level, think of anyone you know who consistently gets things done. Chances are they start their mornings with focus on the important things. Athletes train first thing before distractions set in. Writers often do their best work early, before emails and meetings take over. Students who review their hardest subjects in the morning often find it sticks better. It is the same principle in every field. Do the hard thing first and the rest becomes smoother. So how can you start applying Eat the Frog in your own life? It begins by asking one simple question each day. If I could only accomplish one thing today, which task would make the biggest difference? That is your frog. Once you identify it, commit to doing it before you do anything else. Do not check social media. Do not dive into the easy stuff. Go straight for the frog. Even if it is uncomfortable, even if it takes effort, you will be amazed at how much lighter and more productive the rest of your day feels. At first, it might feel tough. You might slip into old habits and choose the easier tasks, but the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Soon, eating the frog turns into a routine. You wake up, you face your hardest challenge, and you finish it. And every time you do, you build confidence and momentum. It is like training a muscle. Over time, you stop dreading the frog and you start looking forward to the sense of relief that comes with finishing it early. So the next time you look at your to-do list and feel tempted to start with the easy stuff, remember this strange little phrase: eat the frog. It is a simple habit with a funny name, but it can change the way you work, reduce your stress, and make every day feel more productive. After all, if you can eat a frog first thing in the morning, everything else in your day will feel like a piece of cake. You wake up on a Monday morning, sit down with a cup of coffee, and open your to-do list. Suddenly, you are staring at 20 different tasks. Some of them are urgent emails that came in overnight. Others are long-term projects that you promised yourself you would finally start. Then there are errands, meetings, calls, and all those little random things that pile up. You feel stuck because you do not know where to begin. You try answering a few emails, then get pulled into an unexpected call, then realize you completely forgot about that big report due tomorrow. By the end of the day, you are exhausted but still feel like you barely moved the needle. Sound familiar? This is a very common experience. Most people do not actually struggle with having too little time. They struggle with deciding how to use the time they already have. We jump from task to task based on whatever feels loudest or most urgent in the moment. That usually means putting out fires instead of making real progress. And because everything looks equally important when it is written down in one long list, we often procrastinate or just pick the easiest task instead of the most meaningful one. The result is that days feel busy but not productive. The truth is that not all tasks are created equal. Some are urgent but not important. Some are important but not urgent. Some are neither, and only a few are both urgent and important. If you do not learn how to tell the difference, you end up treating all tasks the same and running in circles. That is where one powerful productivity hack comes in. It is called the Eisenhower Matrix, and it is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to organize your priorities. The Eisenhower Matrix is named after Dwight Eisenhower, the former United States President and five-star general who was known for his incredible ability to focus on what mattered most. The idea is simple. You take all your tasks and sort them into 4 categories. The first category is urgent and important. These are tasks you must do right away, like deadlines, emergencies, or problems that cannot wait. The second category is important but not urgent. These are long-term goals, planning, and meaningful projects that build your future but do not scream for attention today. The third category is urgent but not important. These are interruptions, phone calls, or requests that feel pressing but do not actually contribute much to your goals. The fourth category is neither urgent nor important. These are distractions like scrolling endlessly on social media or watching one more random video just to kill time. Once you see your tasks in this way, the path forward becomes clear. You focus on the first category immediately. You schedule and protect time for the second category because that is where real growth and progress come from. You delegate or minimize the third category whenever possible. And you simply eliminate the fourth category because those tasks only drain your energy without giving anything back. Think about how this works in everyday life. Imagine you are a student with an essay due tomorrow. That essay clearly belongs in the urgent and important box, so you do it first. Now let us say you also want to improve your writing skills long-term by practicing a little bit each week. That is important but not urgent, so you schedule it for later in the week and protect that time from being interrupted. Then you have a friend texting you to help with something small that they could really do themselves. That goes in the urgent but not important box, so maybe you politely decline or help only if you have spare time. Finally, you notice yourself about to binge-watch a random show instead of starting your essay. That goes in the not urgent and not important box, so you cut it out. The beauty of the Eisenhower Matrix is that it takes away the mental clutter. Instead of a messy to-do list where everything looks the same, you now have a clear map. You do not have to waste energy wondering what to do next because the Matrix already told you. Over time, this habit can save hours, reduce stress, and keep you consistently moving toward your bigger goals rather than just reacting to whatever happens. And here is why it really matters. Most people spend far too much time in the urgent but not important box. We answer emails the second they arrive, jump into calls that could have been avoided, and say yes to requests that do not align with our goals. This gives us the illusion of being productive, but in reality it steals time away from the important but not urgent box. That second box is where all the good stuff happens. That is where you work on building skills, strengthening relationships, improving your health, or starting projects that truly matter. By protecting that box, you move from being reactive to being proactive. History itself shows how effective this way of thinking can be. Eisenhower used this method during World War II when he had to decide between countless urgent tasks on the battlefield and the bigger strategic moves that would actually win the war. Instead of getting lost in the chaos of immediate demands, He kept focusing on the long-term important goals. Later, as president, he applied the same principle to running a country filled with constant challenges. If a person with responsibilities at that scale relied on this approach, you can imagine how powerful it can be in our everyday lives. Even modern productivity experts swear by it. Business leaders use the matrix to decide which projects deserve attention and which ones should be delegated. Teachers use it to separate meaningful lesson planning from endless administrative tasks, and regular people like you and me can use it to balance work, school, and personal life without burning out. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by a long list of tasks, do not just dive in randomly. Stop for a moment and draw the matrix in your mind or on a piece of paper. Ask yourself, is this task urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, or neither? Once you know, act accordingly. Do the first, schedule the second, delegate the third, and delete the fourth. It may sound simple, but the Eisenhower Matrix can completely change how you work. It can turn overwhelming chaos into clear priorities. It can protect your time and energy for the things that truly matter. And most importantly, it can help you feel accomplished at the end of the day rather than just busy. So try it today. Take a few minutes, sort your tasks into the 4 categories, and watch how much lighter and more focused you feel. Because productivity is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters most. You sit down to work on something important, maybe an assignment, a report, or even a creative project. You are ready to focus, but then your phone buzzes. It is a message and you quickly reply. A few minutes later, you check your email. Then you remember you need to pay a bill, so you open another app. Before you know it, you are bouncing from task to task, and an hour has passed without making real progress on the thing that mattered most. It is not that you are lazy or unmotivated. It is just that your brain is being pulled in so many directions that it feels like you are working hard, when in reality you are stuck in a loop of constant switching. This is a struggle many people deal with every single day. We think that multitasking is efficient, but in reality it slows us down. Our brains are not designed to handle constant context switching. Every time you jump from answering an email to writing a report and then back to texting a friend, your mind needs time to refocus. That refocusing time adds up. It is why a 2-hour project might stretch into 3 hours. People often underestimate how much energy is wasted this way. The result is frustration, mental fatigue, and the nagging feeling that you are always busy but never truly productive. Here is where batching similar tasks comes in. Batching is a simple yet powerful productivity hack that means grouping similar tasks together and doing them all at once, instead of scattering them throughout your day. Think of it like laundry. You would not wash one sock in the morning, another shirt in the afternoon, and a single pair of pants in the evening. That would be ridiculous. Instead, you collect everything and wash it all in one go. Batching applies the same logic to your work and personal tasks. So what does that look like in real life? Imagine setting aside 30 minutes just to answer all your emails instead of checking them every few minutes. Or having one block of time dedicated to making phone calls, another for brainstorming ideas, and another for organizing documents. The idea is to enter a focused mode for one type of task. Stay there until it is done, and then move on. This saves you from the constant mental gear shifting that drains your energy and steals your time. Why does batching matter so much? Because it helps you work with the natural rhythm of your brain instead of against it. When you stay on one type of activity, your brain builds momentum. For example, if you are writing, the first few sentences might feel slow. But once you are warmed up, ideas start to flow faster. If you suddenly stop to answer a text and then return to writing, you break that flow and have to start over. Batching protects your focus by minimizing these interruptions. There are also emotional benefits. Batching reduces decision fatigue. If you have a scattered to-do list with 20 different tasks, your mind keeps wondering, should I do this now or that later? But when you batch, you simplify the choice. You know that for the next half hour, you are only doing one type of task. That clarity lowers stress and makes it easier to actually finish what you start. Let's ground this idea with an everyday example. Imagine grocery shopping. You could go to the store every time you need a single item. Bread in the morning, milk in the afternoon, vegetables at night. But that would be exhausting and wasteful. Instead, you batch all your grocery needs into one trip. The same principle applies to cooking meals in advance, cleaning your house room by room, or paying all your bills at the same time each month. Batching is already part of your life in some areas. You just need to apply it more deliberately to your work and responsibilities. A great real-world example of batching in action comes from the world of productivity experts and even creative professionals. The author Cal Newport, who wrote about deep work, points out that great thinkers often grouped their low-value tasks into tight batches so they could protect long, uninterrupted stretches of time for more important work. Similarly, famous entrepreneurs often schedule all their meetings back-to-back on a single day instead of scattering them throughout the week. By batching their meetings, they keep the rest of the week open for focused work. There is also research to back this up. A study from the University of California found that after being interrupted, it takes people more than 20 minutes on average to fully regain focus on the original task. Imagine how much time is lost if you are constantly switching throughout the day. Batching helps eliminate those wasted minutes, which compound into hours of regained productivity over the course of a week. Of course, batching does not mean you ignore urgent matters or become inflexible. Life still happens. Emergencies will pop up. But for the majority of tasks, batching is a smart strategy. You can start small. For example, instead of checking social media throughout the day, pick 2 windows of time where you allow yourself to catch up, or decide that you will return phone calls between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. These small boundaries create enormous benefits for your focus and energy. When you start practicing batching, you will notice that your day feels smoother. You will move from task to task with less friction. Your projects will finish faster because you are not losing time to constant distractions. And you will end the day with more mental energy left over for the things that truly matter, whether that is spending time with family, exercising, or pursuing a hobby. So the next time you feel scattered and overwhelmed, remember the laundry analogy. Do not wash one sock at a time. Batch your tasks together. Answer your emails in one sitting. Make your phone calls in a block. Write all your reports in focused stretches. Protect your brain from the exhaustion of constant switching. Batching is not just about getting more done. It is about working smarter, saving energy, and creating more space for the things you care about most. That is the power of batching similar tasks. It is simple, it is practical, and once you try it, you might wonder how you ever lived without it. You finish your workday, shut down your laptop, and walk away. But even while you're making dinner or trying to relax on the couch, your mind is still buzzing. You're replaying emails you didn't answer, wondering about tomorrow's meetings, and thinking about that half-finished project sitting in your documents folder. By the time you actually get into bed, you realize you never really felt done with work. Your body left the desk, but your brain stayed in the office. Sound familiar? This is a very common problem today. We carry our work with us everywhere. Smartphones, email notifications, and remote work make it almost impossible to truly clock out. Even if we stop working physically, we often keep working mentally. It feels like your brain is constantly juggling tasks and the weight never really goes away. Over time, this creates stress, burnout, and that nagging feeling that you are never fully on top of things. Most people think the solution is to simply work harder during the day or to just tell themselves to stop worrying. But if you've tried that, you know it rarely works. Here is the good news. There is a simple productivity hack that can fix this problem. It is called a shutdown ritual. Now that may sound fancy, but it is really just a short routine you do at the end of your workday that signals to your brain, work is done. Think of it like flipping a switch in your head. A shutdown ritual is not about working more. It is about creating a clear mental boundary between your work and your personal life, so that when you finish, you can actually enjoy your free time without work sneaking back in. So how does it work? At the end of your workday, instead of just slamming your laptop shut and walking away, you take a few minutes to close things down intentionally. For example, you might quickly review your to-do list, jot down the top priorities for tomorrow, close all browser tabs, shut off notifications, and literally say to yourself, "Shut down complete." That small act may seem silly, but it tells your brain that there is no need to keep rehearsing tasks in your head. You have already captured what matters for tomorrow, and today is over. Why does this matter? Because our brains do not like unfinished business. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, when something is left incomplete, your brain keeps nudging you about it, almost like an open tab in your mental browser. That is why you might randomly remember an unfinished email while brushing your teeth, or start worrying about tomorrow's meeting in the middle of dinner. A shutdown ritual helps you close those loops. By writing things down and making a clear plan for tomorrow, your brain can finally relax, because it knows the tasks are safe and will not be forgotten. Let's make this practical. Imagine you finish work at 6 in the evening. Instead of just standing up and heading to the kitchen, you spend the last 10 minutes tying up loose ends. You check your email inbox and either reply quickly or mark messages for tomorrow. You update your task list and highlight 3 important things for the next day. You save and close all documents so you are not tempted to peek later. Then maybe you even do something physical, like turning off your desk lamp or shutting down your computer fully. Finally, you say out loud, "Shutdown complete." From that moment on, work is behind you and you can move forward guilt-free. Here's why it works so well. Humans thrive on rituals. They give structure to our lives. Think about brushing your teeth before bed. You probably do not even think about it anymore, but that ritual helps signal to your brain that it is time to sleep. A shutdown ritual works in the same way. It becomes a habit that marks the end of the workday so that your brain stops dragging tasks into your personal time. There's even research that backs this up. One study from the Dominican University of California showed that people who wrote down their goals were significantly more likely to achieve them compared to those who just kept goals in their heads. The same principle applies to tasks at work. When you write them down as part of your shutdown ritual, you are taking them out of your mind and putting them into a safe place. This reduces mental clutter and helps you recharge more effectively. To see this in action, let's look at a famous example. Cal Newport, a computer science professor and author of the book Deep Work, swears by his shutdown ritual. He explains that every evening he follows a strict process. Review the day's work, plan for tomorrow, shut down the computer, and say the words "shut down complete." He claims that this ritual has been essential in allowing him to enjoy his evenings free of work anxiety, even while juggling teaching, writing, and research. By having a ritual, he can fully disconnect and rest, which actually makes him more productive when he returns the next day. But you do not need to be a professor or an author to benefit from this. Imagine finishing your workday, doing your shutdown ritual, and then walking away with peace of mind. Instead of half watching a movie while secretly worrying about emails, you are fully present. Instead of lying awake at night running through your to-do list, you fall asleep faster because your mind is calm. Over time, this small habit compounds. giving you more rest, more energy, and more focus. The best part is, a shutdown ritual does not have to take long. Even just 5 minutes is enough. The key is consistency. If you do it every day, your brain starts to trust the process. It learns that once you complete the ritual, everything important is already captured and it can stop nagging you. That is when you finally get to experience true downtime, guilt-free relaxation, and sharper focus when you come back to work. So the next time you finish your day, do not just walk away. Take a few minutes to close the loops, write things down, shut off distractions, and mark the end with your own phrase. It might feel small at first, but it creates a powerful boundary between work and life. And in a world where those boundaries keep getting blurred, that little ritual might just be the secret weapon you need for less stress and more productivity. It is Monday morning and you sit down at your desk determined to be productive. You open your laptop, make a mental note to answer some emails, prepare a report, finish a project, and also start planning for next week. Suddenly you realize you have so many things to do that you do not even know where to begin. So instead of starting, you check your phone, scroll a little, and then try to multitask. Hours go by, and at the end of the day you feel exhausted but somehow still unaccomplished. The truth is, you were busy, but you did not actually get the important work done. This happens to almost everyone. We live in a world that celebrates multitasking. We are told to do more, juggle more, and squeeze as many tasks as possible into every hour. We carry long to-do lists with 20 or 30 items, and it feels like if we are not constantly switching between them, we are falling behind. But here is the problem. When we spread our energy across everything at once, we end up giving only fragments of attention to each task. We confuse movement with progress, and that is why many of us end the day feeling drained, but not truly productive. So what if there was a different way? What if instead of trying to do everything, you focused on just one thing that actually mattered? That is where the one thing method comes in. It is a simple but powerful productivity hack that asks one very specific question. What is the one thing I can do right now? Such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or even unnecessary. That is the essence of the method. Instead of overwhelming yourself with a mountain of tasks, you zoom in on the single action that will make the biggest impact. Think of it like this. Imagine you are trying to knock down a line of dominoes. If you spread your effort by tapping random pieces here and there, nothing really happens. But if you push the very first domino, the one that is positioned just right, the whole chain falls effortlessly. The one thing method works the same way. It tells you to stop scattering your focus and instead find that one domino that will set everything else into motion. Why does this hack matter? Because our brains are not built to handle constant multitasking. Studies show that every time we switch tasks, our brain has to refocus, which wastes time and energy. By choosing one priority and giving it your full attention, you work more deeply, make faster progress, and feel less stressed. You do not have to worry about the 10 other things because they either become irrelevant or much easier once the big priority is done. For example, let us say you are a student with an upcoming exam. You might be tempted to organize your notes, highlight your textbook, and browse online for study tips all at the same time. But if you ask yourself the one thing question, you might realize that the single most effective task right now is to practice 10 sample problems. Once you do that, everything else feels more manageable. Or if you are trying to start a business, instead of worrying about logo design, website colors, and social media strategy, your one thing might be reaching out to your very first customer. That one step makes all the other tasks either easier or less important. There is even a famous story that shows the power of this method. John D. Rockefeller, one of the wealthiest businessmen in history, was known for his incredible focus. Every day, instead of making long to-do lists, He identified one key decision that mattered most for the success of his company and concentrated all his energy on it. By mastering the art of focusing on one thing, he was able to build an empire that changed industries forever. His success was not about doing everything. It was about identifying and executing the most important action. Modern research also backs this up. A study from the American Psychological Association found that people who set clear priorities and tackle their most important task first are significantly more productive than those who spread themselves thin across multiple tasks. In other words, science confirms what successful people have known all along. Focus beats frenzy. The beauty of the one thing method is that it is incredibly practical. You do not need any fancy apps or complicated systems. You just need to pause and ask yourself the question, what is the one thing I can do right now such that by doing it everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Once you have your answer, commit to it. Block out distractions, set a timer if you need to, and give yourself permission to do only that task until it is done. Over time, this method can completely change the way you approach your days. Instead of waking up feeling overwhelmed by endless lists, you start the day with clarity. Instead of multitasking, you focus. And instead of ending the day drained and frustrated, you actually feel accomplished. It is not about working harder, but about working smarter. So the next time you find yourself drowning in tasks, remember the one thing method. Look at your to-do list, take a deep breath, and ask the question. Find the first domino. Focus on it, finish it, and watch how the rest of your day becomes easier. Because sometimes the key to doing more is not adding more, but focusing on less. You wake up in the morning and you tell yourself, today I'm going to read a few pages of that book I have been putting off. Or maybe you promise yourself, I'm finally going to stretch for 10 minutes after brushing my teeth. But then reality happens. You rush through your morning routine, grab your phone, and before you know it, an hour has passed. The book is still unopened. The stretching never happened. You go to bed at night thinking tomorrow will be a different day. But the same cycle repeats itself. This is such a common problem. We want to build better habits, whether it is exercising, meditating, journaling, or even something as simple as drinking more water. But the hardest part is often just remembering to do it in the middle of everything else that fills up our day. We rely on willpower alone, and willpower is a very weak tool when the brain is already juggling deadlines, chores, and distractions. So what usually happens? We keep waiting for the perfect time to start, or we try for a few days but then forget, and the new habit quietly fades away. That is where habit stacking comes in. Habit stacking is a powerful productivity hack that helps you create new habits by attaching them to the ones you already do automatically. Think of it like this. Your existing habits are like anchors. They are strong, steady, and you never forget them. You brush your teeth every morning. You make coffee, you take a shower, you check your phone. Those are anchors. Habit stacking says, instead of trying to create a brand new habit out of thin air, you simply stack the new habit on top of one you already have. In other words, you piggyback off a routine that is already ingrained in your daily life. Here is the magic behind it. Your brain loves patterns. It is always looking for cues and triggers. When you brush your teeth, your brain knows it is morning. When you hear the kettle boiling, your brain knows coffee is coming. By stacking a new habit on top of an old one, you are giving your brain a clear signal. When I do this, then I will do that. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. Or, after I pour my morning coffee, I will write down one thing I am grateful for. The old habit acts as the trigger, and the new habit naturally follows without you needing to remember it separately. Why does this matter so much? Because it takes away the mental effort of trying to remember or motivate yourself every single day. Imagine never having to set a reminder or nag yourself about your new habit because it just flows automatically out of what you already do. That means less stress, less guilt, and a much higher chance that the new habit sticks for the long term. Think about how much easier it is to say, after I put my shoes by the door, I will stretch for 2 minutes, compared to simply saying, I need to stretch every day. The first one is concrete, automatic, and connected to your routine. The second one is vague and easy to forget. Let me give you some simple real-life examples. If you want to build the habit of drinking more water, you could stack it with making coffee. After I turn on the coffee maker, I will drink a full glass of water. If you want to practice gratitude, stack it with bedtime. After I set my phone on the nightstand, I will write down 3 things I am grateful for. If you want to move more, stack it with bathroom breaks. After I use the bathroom, I will do 10 squats. Each example connects something automatic with something new. Over time, the connection becomes so natural that you do not even think about it. Now you might be wondering, does this really work, or is it just another productivity buzzword? Well, there is actually research behind it. A famous study by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer looked at what are called implementation intentions. Instead of people just saying, I will exercise more, participants were asked to write a very specific plan like, when situation X happens, I will do behavior Y. The results were striking. People who used these when-then statements were 2 to 3 times more likely to stick with their new habits compared to those who simply relied on motivation. Habit stacking is essentially this idea in action. By tying your new behavior to a specific trigger that is already part of your life, you dramatically increase your chances of success. There are also many real-world stories of people who used habit stacking to transform their routines. Take James Clear, the author of the best-selling book Atomic Habits, who popularized this concept. He shared how someone wanted to start doing push-ups regularly but always forgot. So he created a simple stack. After I pour my morning coffee, I will do 2 push-ups. It started with just 2 push-ups, but soon enough it turned into 10, then 20, and eventually became a natural part of his morning routine. The key was not willpower, but consistency built on top of an anchor habit. And here is something to keep in mind. Habit stacking works best when you start small. If you try to stack a 30-minute workout on top of brushing your teeth, it will feel overwhelming. But if you start with 1 push-up or 1 stretch, it is easy. It feels natural, and your brain does not resist. Small wins build momentum. Over time, those small wins grow into bigger, lasting changes. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I wish I had more discipline, remember that discipline is not the problem. The problem is your system, and habit stacking is one of the simplest systems you can use to make new habits stick. Imagine what your life could look like if every day, without even thinking about it, you read 1 page of a book, wrote down 1 thing you were grateful for, stretched for 1 minute, or drank 1 glass of water. Those small actions might seem tiny on their own, but stacked consistently, they can change the entire direction of your life. So here is your challenge. Pick 1 habit you already do every single day. Then choose 1 tiny new habit you want to build. Write it as a clear statement. After I do this, I will do that. And try it for the next week. You will be surprised at how much easier it feels compared to forcing yourself through willpower alone. Habit stacking is not about working harder. It is about working smarter with your brain's natural love for routines and triggers. Anchor your new habits to the old ones and watch as they grow effortlessly into your daily life. You wake up Monday morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, your hand is already reaching for your phone. The bright screen lights up your face as you scroll through notifications, emails, messages, and social media posts. 10 minutes pass, then 20, then almost an hour. By the time you finally get up, you already feel behind. Your head is buzzing with information and your energy is scattered. Later in the day, when you want to focus on studying, working, or simply enjoying time with friends, you notice that your attention keeps slipping back to that glowing rectangle in your pocket. It feels impossible to disconnect. And at the end of the day, you wonder where all your time went. This is the world most of us live in now. We are surrounded by digital noise, endless notifications, and platforms that are designed to pull us in and keep us there. It is no wonder that we often feel busy but not productive, connected but strangely disconnected at the same time. The funny part is that deep down we know this is happening. We can sense that scrolling endlessly does not make us happier or more productive, yet breaking free from it feels almost impossible. Many people try quick fixes like deleting one app or turning off notifications for a week, but eventually they fall back into the same old habits. Why? Because the problem is bigger than just one app or one distracting platform. It is the entire way we relate to technology. And this is where digital minimalism comes in. Digital minimalism is not about throwing away your phone or living in a cabin in the woods. Instead, it is about being intentional with your technology use. The idea is simple. You only use digital tools that add real value to your life, and you remove the rest. In other words, it is not about rejecting technology altogether, but about choosing technology with purpose. Think of it like cleaning up a messy closet. You do not have to throw away every piece of clothing. You just keep the ones you actually wear and love, and you get rid of the items that only take up space. So why does this matter for productivity? Because every unnecessary app, every useless notification, and every mindless scroll session is like clutter in your brain. It steals your attention in small pieces until you no longer have the focus to do the work that actually matters. Digital minimalism helps you cut out that noise so you can reclaim your time, energy, and focus. For example, imagine you are trying to write an essay, but every 10 minutes you grab your phone to check if someone texted you. That constant interruption is like trying to run a marathon while stopping every block to tie your shoes. You will never reach a state of deep focus. But when you practice digital minimalism, you intentionally remove those interruptions from your environment, which makes it easier to concentrate and finish your work faster. One everyday way to apply digital minimalism is with social media. Instead of having 5 or 6 different apps that all serve the same purpose, pick just one platform that truly matters to you. Maybe you keep Facebook only because your family shares updates there and you delete the rest. Another example is your notifications. Instead of letting your phone buzz 20 times an hour, go through your settings and allow only the important alerts like calls or messages from close friends. Suddenly, your phone stops controlling you and you start controlling your phone. There is also a mental benefit to this approach. When you cut down on digital clutter, you are no longer constantly bombarded with other people's opinions, highlights, and distractions. That gives your brain space to breathe, to think clearly, and to focus on your own goals. Imagine sitting down to read a book without your phone lighting up beside you, or enjoying a meal with friends without the urge to check Instagram. Those small changes make a big difference. To see how powerful this hack really is, let us look at an interesting story. A few years ago, a computer science professor named Cal Newport wrote a book called Digital Minimalism. In his research, he discovered that many of the most productive people in the world had one thing in common. They were ruthless about how they used technology. They were not constantly scrolling, checking, or multitasking. Instead, they carefully chose the tools that supported their work and ignored the rest. Newport even shared examples of people who took a 30-day digital declutter, where they removed all optional technologies for a month and then only reintroduced the ones that truly added value. The results were eye-opening. People reported higher levels of focus, less stress, and a stronger sense of control over their lives. And you do not have to be a professor or a high-powered CEO to benefit from this. Think about students who practice digital minimalism by deleting TikTok during exam season, or writers who leave their phones in another room while working. Even parents who set aside their phones during dinner time are practicing a form of digital minimalism. These simple choices add up to more meaningful conversations, better focus, and less wasted time. At the heart of it, digital minimalism is not about restriction. It is about freedom. It frees you from the constant pull of digital distractions so you can give your best attention to the things that really matter: your work, your relationships, and your own peace of mind. By practicing it, you are no longer letting algorithms decide how you spend your day. You are the one in charge. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by endless notifications or drained after scrolling for hours, remember this hack. Ask yourself, does this technology truly serve me, or am I serving it? Then choose only the digital tools that actually add value to your life. Because at the end of the day, productivity is not about doing more things. It is about doing the right things with clarity and focus. And digital minimalism is one of the most powerful ways to get there. You have a school paper due in 1 week. The teacher gives you 7 full days to complete it, and you think to yourself, that's plenty of time. So what happens? On day 1, you feel relaxed. On day 2, you tell yourself, I still have 5 more days. By day 4, you decide to take a quick look at the instructions, but nothing more. Then the night before the deadline, panic kicks in. Suddenly you are typing as fast as you can, staying up way too late and scrambling to finish something that could have been done days earlier. Sound familiar? This is one of those struggles nearly everyone can relate to. Whether it is a paper, a work report, or even cleaning your room. The more time you think you have, the more you allow the task to stretch and take over that entire window. It feels normal, but in reality it is not about how long the task actually takes. It is about how long you allow it to take. And that difference is the key to today's productivity hack. Many people assume that more time automatically means better results. They think, if I give myself an entire week, I will have the chance to polish, review, and create something amazing. But most of the time, that is not what happens. Instead, the task just fills the space you gave it. The work expands, but not because it needs to. It expands because your brain relaxes when it sees so much time ahead. This leads to procrastination, wasted energy, and often more stress in the end. This is where something called Parkinson's law comes in. Parkinson's law is a simple idea, but once you understand it, it can completely change how you approach work. The law was first described by Cyril Northcote Parkinson, a British author and historian who famously said, "Work expands to fill the time available for its completion." Let's put that in everyday words. If you give yourself 1 week to do something, it will somehow take 1 week. But if you give yourself 2 hours, the same task often shrinks to fit those 2 hours. Think about the last time you had only a short deadline. Maybe you had to catch a bus in 10 minutes and you managed to get ready faster than ever before. Or maybe you remembered an assignment just a few hours before class and you somehow pulled it off. That is Parkinson's law in action. When the time is short, your brain focuses. Distractions fall away. You cut out the fluff and get straight to the point. On the other hand, when the time is long, you unconsciously stretch things out. You check your phone, you overthink, you delay, and the task drags on far longer than it should. Why does this matter for productivity? Because once you realize that work expands or contracts based on the time you allow it, you can use this to your advantage. Instead of giving yourself endless hours or days, you can intentionally set shorter deadlines. These are not fake deadlines meant to trick yourself. They are real self-imposed boundaries that push you to focus. For example, let's say you need to clean your room. Normally, you might spend the entire afternoon picking up clothes, scrolling through your phone in between, and slowly making progress. But if you tell yourself, I will finish this in 30 minutes, suddenly your brain switches gears. You pick up faster, you stop wandering off, you actually complete the task in a fraction of the time, and then you have the rest of the afternoon free. The same principle can be applied to studying. Imagine you need to review a chapter of your textbook. Instead of saying, I will study until I get tired, try saying, I will give myself 45 minutes to summarize this chapter. You will be surprised at how much you get done when there is a clear limit. Your focus sharpens, your effort increases, and you save hours you would have otherwise wasted. A famous example of Parkinson's law at work can be seen in student life. Studies have shown that when exams are scheduled far in advance, students procrastinate and delay studying until the very last days. But when surprise quizzes or short deadlines are given, students adapt quickly and perform under pressure. The interesting part is that the quality of the work or preparation does not always suffer with less time. In fact, many people argue that the results can be just as good, because there is less room for overthinking and more drive to get straight to the essentials. Another real-world story comes from software development. In the early days of Silicon Valley, companies noticed that when deadlines were loose, projects would drag on endlessly. But when clear short milestones were set, teams managed to accomplish in weeks what might have otherwise taken months. This is why many modern businesses now use methods like sprints, where small, focused deadlines are set instead of letting projects expand without limits. Using Parkinson's law in your own life does not mean rushing through everything. It means giving your tasks a healthy sense of urgency. Instead of saying, I will work on this all day, say, I will finish the main part in 2 hours. Instead of letting homework eat up your entire weekend, decide, I will get it done before lunch. You will often find that the shorter time frame is enough, and sometimes even better, because you are cutting out wasted time. So the next time you face a task, remember this. The amount of time you give it is the amount of time it will take. If you want to free up your schedule, lower your stress, and get more done, try using Parkinson's law. Set tighter, realistic deadlines. Challenge yourself to finish sooner, and watch as tasks that once felt overwhelming suddenly shrink into something manageable. Work does not always need to take forever. Sometimes all it needs is less time. That is the power of Parkinson's law. You promise yourself that today will be different. You wake up and say, I'll finally study for that exam, or I'll finally go to the gym. Or maybe I'll finally sit down and write that paper I've been avoiding. You have all the motivation in the world in that moment, but as the hours pass, distractions sneak in. You check your phone, scroll through social media, maybe even decide to clean your desk instead of doing the real work. Before you know it, the day is over. You feel guilty, you tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow, and the cycle repeats. Sound familiar? This is such a common experience because we often rely on bursts of motivation to get things done. We wait for the perfect mood, the perfect energy, or the perfect moment to act. The problem is that motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, and when it disappears, our goals stall. That is why so many people start a new habit but stop after a few days or weeks. They think the issue is discipline or laziness, but often it is really about not having a clear system to keep momentum alive. And that is exactly where today's productivity hack comes in. It is called Don't Break the Chain. At first, it sounds a little mysterious, almost like something from a fitness program or a military drill. But it is actually one of the simplest and most powerful tools you can use to build consistency in your life. Here is how it works. You pick one habit you want to stick with. It could be reading 10 pages of a book, exercising for 20 minutes, writing a paragraph, practicing a new language, or anything else you want to get better at. Then, every day you complete that habit, you put an X on a calendar. The X marks the day you showed up. Over time, those X's begin to form a chain. Your only job is to not break the chain. That is it. That is the entire hack. But the beauty lies in how our brains respond to it. Once you see a growing line of X's, you feel a natural urge to keep it going. It is no longer just about doing a single habit. It is about protecting the streak you have built. Skipping one day suddenly feels like breaking something valuable, something you worked hard to create. That simple visual cue of a chain of progress turns consistency into a game, and your brain does not want to lose the game. Why does this matter? Because one of the hardest parts of building habits is that the reward often feels far away. If you go to the gym once, you will not see instant results. If you study for one night, you may not suddenly understand the whole subject. If you write for one day, you will not finish a book. The payoff is delayed, and that makes it easy to quit. Don't Break the Chain solves this problem by giving you an immediate reward. The reward is the satisfaction of marking that X and keeping the chain alive. It is a small win that builds into something much bigger. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You do not brush once and expect perfect dental health. You brush every day because the habit itself matters more than any single session. The chain method works the same way. It shifts your focus from outcomes you cannot control to actions you can control. Instead of worrying about when you will master Spanish or when you will finally finish that novel, you simply focus on today's link in the chain. To make this even more concrete, let's look at a famous story. The idea of "don't break the chain" is often credited to the comedian Jerry Seinfeld. Early in his career, when he was still trying to sharpen his writing skills, Seinfeld gave advice to a fellow comedian who asked how to get better. He said, "The way to be a better comic is to write better jokes. The way to write better jokes is to write every day." And to make sure he did it, Seinfeld used a big wall calendar. Each day he wrote, he put a red X on the calendar. After a few days, he had a chain of X's, and his only goal was simple: do not break the chain. This small system helped him stay consistent, and it is easy to see how it could apply to any goal. Imagine you want to build a study habit. You print out a calendar, hang it above your desk, and every day you study for at least 30 minutes, you mark an X. After 2 weeks, you see 14 X's in a row. That is proof of your effort. Now imagine being on day 15. You are tired, you want to skip, but then you look at that calendar. Do you really want to be the one who ruins a 15-day streak? Most likely you will push through, even if it is just for a short session, because protecting the chain feels important. The same thing happens in fitness. Let's say you commit to running or doing push-ups daily. Even if some days you do less, the chain keeps you accountable. Or in creative work, maybe you commit to writing a few lines of a poem or sketching something small. The chain reminds you that showing up is what matters. Progress is not always about intensity, it is about consistency. Now, of course, you might be wondering, what if I do miss a day? Life happens. Sometimes you get sick, or you have an emergency, or something unexpected comes up. The key is not to let one missed day turn into 2 or 3. If the chain breaks, start a new one immediately. Remember, the point is not perfection. The point is building a habit that lasts over time. Even Seinfeld himself probably missed a day here and there. But the system worked because he always came back to it. So if you are someone who struggles with procrastination, if you find yourself starting and stopping over and over again, this is a hack worth trying. All you need is a calendar, a marker, and the willingness to build one link at a time. Over weeks and months, the chain becomes a powerful visual story of your dedication. It reminds you that real success is not about giant leaps, but about small, consistent steps that add up. In the end, "Don't break the chain" is not just a productivity hack. It is a mindset shift. It teaches you to value showing up more than waiting for perfect conditions. It makes progress visible and tangible, and it turns the sometimes invisible work of building habits into something you can actually see, day after day. So next time you set a goal, do not just hope for motivation. Create your chain, guard it carefully, and let consistency do the heavy lifting. You wake up early, determined to have a productive day. You write a long to-do list filled with 10, maybe even 20 tasks. You think, if I can just get all of this done, I'll finally feel on top of things. But as the day goes on, something strange happens. You check off a few small tasks like replying to emails, rearranging your desk, or tweaking a document. By evening, you have been busy the whole day, but when you look back, the big important things are still sitting there untouched. You end the day frustrated, wondering, why do I feel like I worked so hard but got so little done? This is an experience almost everyone has. We equate being busy with being productive, but the truth is, they are not the same. Busy feels good because it tricks our brain into thinking we are making progress. But deep down, we know that not all tasks are equal. Some tasks truly move the needle forward, while others are just noise. The problem is that most of us treat everything on our list as if it matters equally, when in reality that is rarely the case. So here's the big question. What if you could figure out which tasks actually matter the most? What if you could focus on the small fraction of things that give you almost all of the results? Well, that is exactly what the 80-20 rule, also called the Pareto principle, is all about. The 80-20 rule is simple. It says that in many areas of life, 80% of the results come from just 20% of the effort. In other words, not everything you do is equally important. A small number of your actions are responsible for most of your outcomes. Think about it like this. Out of all the clothes in your closet, you probably wear the same few outfits over and over again. Out of all the apps on your phone, you spend most of your time on just 2 or 3. Out of all the friends in your contacts, you probably talk regularly with only a handful. That is the 80-20 rule in action. Now, why does this matter for productivity? Because once you realize that not all tasks are equal, you stop treating them equally. Instead of scattering your energy across a dozen small tasks, you can focus on the few that actually drive real progress. It is like shining a flashlight in a dark room. The beam only covers a small space, but it lights it up powerfully. If you spread the same light across the entire room, it becomes so weak that nothing is clear. Focusing on the right 20% is like choosing the strong beam instead of the weak glow. Let's make this practical. Imagine you are a student preparing for an exam. You have 500 pages of material, but when you look closely, you realize that most test questions come from just 3 key chapters. If you try to study every single page equally, you will run out of time and energy. But if you identify the critical chapters and focus there, you will likely perform much better. Or picture yourself running a small business. You might notice that a small group of loyal customers brings in most of your revenue, while the rest barely make a difference. By giving extra attention to those loyal customers, you maximize your results without exhausting yourself chasing everyone. This is not just theory. There is a famous story about Vilfredo Pareto, the Italian economist who discovered this principle in the late 1800s. He noticed that in his country, about 80% of the land was owned by just 20% of the population. Curious, he looked at his own garden and saw that a small number of pea pods produced the majority of the peas. This pattern repeated itself in many areas of life and business, and eventually it became known as the Pareto principle. Since then, countless studies have confirmed this effect. In sales, for example, it is common that a small group of clients generate the majority of revenue. In software, a small number of bugs cause most of the crashes. Even in everyday work, a few key habits often drive most of our success. Here is another relatable example. Think about your phone notifications. You probably get 100 little alerts each day, but when you step back, only a few of them are truly important. Maybe a message from your boss, a text from your partner, or an alert about an urgent bill. The rest are distractions. If you treat all notifications as urgent, you end up drowning in noise. But if you apply the 80-20 mindset, you quickly realize that most of them do not deserve your attention. So how do you apply this hack in your own life? Start by asking yourself, out of everything on my list, which 2 tasks will make the biggest difference today? Instead of aiming to do everything, focus on those. This way, even if the day gets messy and you do not finish everything, you still move forward in the areas that actually matter. Another approach is to look back at the past week and ask, what activities gave me the most results? Double down on those and cut back on the rest. The beauty of the 80-20 rule is that it not only saves you time, but it also reduces stress. You stop feeling guilty about not doing everything because you know that not everything deserves your attention in the first place. You learn to let go of low-value tasks and put your energy into the few things that create real progress. It is not about working harder, it is about working smarter and choosing wisely where to place your effort. So the next time you are staring at a long to-do list, remember this. Not all tasks are created equal. A small handful will create most of your results. Find them, focus on them, and watch how much more productive, focused, and free you begin to feel. That is the power of the 80-20 rule. It is one of the simplest yet most powerful productivity hacks you can ever apply in your life. You are lying in bed at night. The lights are off, your phone is finally out of your hands, and you tell yourself it is time to sleep. But instead of drifting off, your mind suddenly turns into a loud, crowded room. You start thinking about tomorrow's deadlines, that text you forgot to reply to, the groceries you need to buy, and that random embarrassing thing you said 3 years ago. Minutes pass, then hours. And the next thing you know, it is midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and you are still wide awake, staring at the ceiling. This is a scenario almost everyone knows too well. We have so many thoughts buzzing around in our heads that when we are supposed to rest, our brain decides it is the perfect time to go over the to-do list, relive the day, or worry about the future. The result is that we sleep less, we sleep worse, and we wake up the next day feeling like we are dragging ourselves through quicksand. And when you are tired, even the simplest tasks feel harder. You become less productive, less focused, and ironically, you end up more stressed than before. The truth is, we usually do not give our minds a proper exit ramp before bed. We expect our brains to shut down instantly the moment we close our eyes. But in reality, the mind needs a way to release the noise. And this is where most of us make the mistake. We think we should just keep all those thoughts inside, let them bounce around, and hope they magically disappear by morning. But instead, they grow louder. That is why there is one simple but powerful hack that can help you sleep better, clear your head, and actually make you more productive the next day. It is called the brain dump before bed. Now, the name might sound a little funny, but it is exactly what it sounds like. Right before going to sleep, you grab a notebook or even just a piece of paper and you write down everything that is floating around in your head. Your to-do list, your worries, your random reminders, anything and everything. You are basically dumping all the clutter from your brain onto the page. It is not about writing in perfect sentences or making sense of it all. It is simply about transferring the weight of your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. Think of it this way. Your brain is like a computer with too many tabs open. Each thought you keep in your head is another tab slowing the whole system down. When you do a brain dump, it is like closing those tabs one by one. You are telling your brain, I do not need to keep holding on to this right now because it is safely stored somewhere else. and suddenly your mind feels lighter. The racing thoughts slow down, and sleep comes much easier. This hack matters more than people realize. Sleep is not just about rest, it is the foundation of productivity. If you wake up groggy and unfocused, no amount of coffee will make you perform at your best. But when you give yourself the gift of a calm mind before bed, you wake up recharged, clear-headed, and ready to actually tackle the tasks you wrote down the night before. It is like setting up tomorrow's success by taking just 5 minutes today. Let's make it even more practical. Imagine you have a presentation at school or work tomorrow. Normally, you might lie in bed thinking of all the things you need to remember, the slides, the data, the way you will start your speech, and the more you think about it, the harder it is to fall asleep. But if you sit down and dump every single thought onto paper, you will instantly feel relief. Instead of worrying about forgetting, you know it is written down. Instead of repeating the same thought 10 times, you only need to write it once. The pressure lifts and your body finally gets permission to rest. Even outside of big events, this works wonders for everyday life. You can jot down errands like buy laundry detergent, personal reminders like call mom, or even simple thoughts like research new workout routine. None of it is too small or too silly because the point is not perfection, the point is freedom. When the thoughts leave your head, your brain no longer feels responsible for holding them. There is also research that backs this up. A study from Baylor University asked people to spend just 5 minutes writing a to-do list before bed. The result was clear. The people who wrote down their tasks fell asleep faster than those who did not. And here is the interesting part. The more specific their list was, the quicker they drifted off. That means the simple act of writing buy bread or finish report on paper was enough to calm the mind and improve sleep. This shows that the brain dump is not just some nice idea. It is a scientifically proven way to reduce mental clutter and help you recharge. And the best part is, it does not cost anything. You do not need fancy apps or gadgets. All you need is a notebook and a pen. Once you start making this a habit, you might even notice a bonus effect. Over time, your notebook becomes a record of your thoughts and tasks. You can flip back and see how much you have accomplished, how your worries changed, or even get new ideas from things you once forgot. It becomes not only a tool for better sleep, but also a tool for reflection and growth. So the next time you find yourself tossing and turning instead of scrolling on your phone or trying to force your brain to shut up, try giving it what it actually wants. A place to unload. Sit down, write it all out, and let the page carry the burden for you. It may feel strange at first, but once you experience how much lighter your mind feels, you will never want to skip it again. At the end of the day, productivity does not just start in the morning. It starts the night before, and a brain dump before bed might be the simplest yet most powerful way to guarantee that when tomorrow comes, you are rested, focused, and ready to win the day. You sit down at your desk with a notebook full of energy, ready to plan your day. You write down every single thing you need to do. Send that email, finish the report, clean the kitchen, study for an exam, call your friend back, start exercising again, maybe even plan a future vacation. After a few minutes, your list is massive. It looks more like a life inventory than a daily plan. You look at it, sigh, and suddenly you do not even know where to start. So instead of making progress, you waste time switching from one thing to another, or worse, you push the list aside and get nothing done. Sound familiar? This is the classic trap of modern productivity. We often confuse being busy with being productive. We think that writing down everything we want to accomplish will magically turn into results. But what actually happens is paralysis. With so many options, our brain struggles to decide what is truly important. It is like trying to juggle 20 balls at once. Even if you manage for a moment, eventually everything crashes to the floor. And the frustrating part is that we usually know what really matters to us deep down, but the noise of smaller, less important tasks drowns it out. This is where one of Warren Buffett's favorite strategies comes in, something called the two-list system. Buffett is one of the most successful investors of all time, and he is known not just for his financial wisdom but also for his ability to stay focused on what truly matters. When a young pilot once asked him for career advice, Buffett gave him a deceptively simple method that anyone can use, whether you are a student, an employee, or an entrepreneur. Here is how it works. Step 1. Write down your top 25 goals. These could be anything: career goals, personal dreams, skills you want to master, projects you want to finish. Once you have them written down, step 2 is to circle the top 5 goals that matter most to you, the ones that, if accomplished, would change your life the most. Congratulations, that is your primary list. Those are the things you should be focusing almost all your energy on. But here is the twist. The remaining 20 goals, the ones you did not circle, are not your maybe later list. Buffett calls them your avoid at all costs list. That sounds harsh, but here is why it works. Those other goals are sneaky. They are not bad. They are not useless. They actually look very appealing, and that is the problem. They are distractions dressed as opportunities. They trick you into spreading your time and energy too thin. By labeling them as avoid at all costs, you protect yourself from diluting your focus. Think about it. Imagine you are trying to become a great writer. Your top 5 goals might be finishing your novel, improving your writing skills, building a daily writing habit, finding an editor, and publishing your work. But on your avoid at all costs list might be learning guitar, starting a YouTube channel, training for a marathon, or taking cooking classes. All of those are good goals, but if you try to chase them while also trying to be a writer, you will constantly get sidetracked. Instead of excelling at one thing, you become average at many things. Why does this hack matter so much? Because our time and energy are limited. Every yes to one thing is an automatic no to something else. When you try to balance 10 priorities, you are essentially giving each one a fraction of your effort. But when you cut the noise and pour yourself into your top 5, the progress is exponential. It is like watering only the most important plants in your garden. They grow strong while the weeds wither away. This strategy is not just theoretical. Many studies on productivity and psychology back it up. One famous principle, called the Pareto principle, shows that about 80% of results come from just 20% of efforts. In other words, focusing on the most important tasks creates most of the impact. The two-list system is like a personal version of this principle. It forces you to identify the 20% that truly moves the needle and to ruthlessly eliminate the distractions that pretend to matter but do not. Let's put it into a real-life example. Imagine a college student who dreams of graduating at the top of his class and landing a great job. He writes down his 25 goals. Study for exams, join 5 clubs, learn guitar, start a blog, exercise daily, travel more, volunteer, build a network, learn coding, and so on. When he applies Buffett's system, his top 5 might be mastering his major subjects, maintaining top grades, building close relationships with professors, gaining internship experience, and developing his communication skills. The other 20 goals may still be fun or useful someday. But if he tries to do them all now, he will dilute his energy and risk failing at the things that actually secure his future. By focusing only on the top 5, he maximizes his chances of success. What makes the two-list system so powerful is its simplicity. It is not about complicated planners, fancy apps, or rigid schedules. It is about clarity. It is about being brutally honest with yourself about what truly matters, and then having the discipline to stick with it. Many people waste years chasing dozens of small ambitions, never realizing that the biggest wins in life usually come from going all in on just a handful of things. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by a massive to-do list, remember Warren Buffett's advice. Write down your top 25 goals, circle the 5 that matter most, and then commit to avoiding the rest. It is not easy. Saying no often feels uncomfortable, but in the long run it is the difference between being scattered and being unstoppable. Because at the end of the day, productivity is not about doing more things. It is about doing the right things. And the two-list system helps you cut through the noise, sharpen your focus, and move confidently toward the goals that truly define your life. You walk into a meeting room at work, sit down, and prepare for what is supposed to be a quick 15-minute check-in. Fast forward 1 hour later and you are still there watching the clock, your mind drifting to all the emails you need to answer, the projects waiting on your desk, and maybe even what you will have for dinner tonight. The meeting has gone on way too long, people are rambling, and it feels like your entire day has been derailed. You leave the room not energized but drained, and the rest of your work suffers. Sound familiar? For most of us, this scenario is far too common. Meetings often eat up way more time than they should, and instead of helping us move forward, they sometimes leave us more confused than before. Here is the problem. Many meetings are held sitting down with everyone comfortably settled into chairs, coffee in hand, and laptops open. This setup feels normal, even professional, but it almost guarantees that the meeting will drag on. Why? Because when we are sitting down, our bodies and minds shift into a slower gear. There is no real sense of urgency, so people talk longer than they need to. Discussions go off track, and before you know it, you are stuck in a marathon session. It is easy to ignore the time slipping by because everyone is physically too comfortable. And yet most people think the only way to run a serious meeting is to have everyone sitting around a table. We rarely question it, even though it consistently wastes our time. Now here is the productivity hack that flips the script. It is called the standing meeting, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of sitting down, everyone remains standing for the entire duration of the meeting. No chairs, no couches, just standing together in a circle or around a table. It may sound simple, maybe even a little unusual, but the impact it has is huge. Standing meetings are designed to keep things short, focused, and efficient. When people are standing, they are less likely to ramble. They pay closer attention, and they naturally want to wrap things up faster because, let's be honest, no one loves standing for hours. Why does this work so well? Think about the difference between sitting down to chat with a friend for hours at a cafe versus standing in line at the grocery store and talking to someone. When you are standing, the conversation tends to be quicker and more to the point. The same principle applies here. Standing creates just enough physical discomfort to nudge everyone toward brevity, without making the meeting feel rushed. It keeps the group alert, engaged, and moving toward decisions rather than endless discussions. For example, imagine your team has a quick daily update in the morning. Instead of people sinking into chairs and checking their phones, everyone stands together, shares their progress, highlights any roadblocks, and wraps up within 10 minutes. Suddenly, the meeting that used to steal half an hour of your day now frees up valuable time for real work. But there is more. Standing meetings also create a sense of equality in the room. When everyone is standing, no one is sitting at the head of the table or hiding in the corner. The physical layout encourages openness and collaboration. People are more likely to participate when the environment feels balanced and active. This is why many tech companies and startups adopted standing meetings early on. They discovered that it not only kept meetings short, but also boosted team energy and connection. One famous study from the University of Missouri backs this up. Researchers compared groups that held meetings sitting down versus standing up. They found that standing meetings were about 1/3 shorter than sitting meetings, but just as effective in terms of decision-making. In other words, the group standing saved significant time without losing any quality in their discussions. Even more interesting, people in standing meetings reported feeling more engaged and more collaborative. They got the same results, but in less time and with better energy. That is a win in every direction. History also gives us a neat example. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, was known for his standing desk. He preferred to work and hold discussions while standing because he believed it kept the mind sharp and the body active. While not exactly the same as a modern standing meeting, the idea carries over. Jefferson understood that our posture affects our focus and productivity. He was ahead of his time in realizing that staying on your feet could lead to clearer thinking and faster decisions. Now let's bring this back to your everyday life. Imagine you and your colleagues need to coordinate a project. Normally, you might schedule a half-hour meeting, grab a conference room, and sink into the chairs. But instead, you propose a standing meeting. Everyone gathers, shares quick updates, makes decisions, and the whole thing is done in 10 minutes. That means 20 extra minutes for real work. Do this every day, and over the course of a month, you have saved hours that would otherwise be wasted. That is not just productivity, that is reclaiming your time and energy. You can even apply the idea outside of work. Let's say you and your roommates need to plan household chores or split bills. Instead of a drawn-out discussion at the kitchen table, you all stand, quickly divide tasks, and wrap it up. Or picture a community group trying to coordinate an event. A standing meeting helps them get organized faster, leaving more time for actual action instead of endless planning. The beauty of this hack is how easy it is to implement. You do not need special tools, apps, or fancy setups. All you need to do is skip the chairs. The next time you are about to call a meeting, suggest that everyone stays standing. At first, people might find it strange, but once they see how much quicker and more focused things become, they will appreciate it. It is one of those small changes that has a massive ripple effect on productivity. So here is the takeaway. Meetings are often one of the biggest time drains in our day, but they do not have to be. By switching from sitting to standing, you inject energy, focus, and efficiency into what is usually a slow and painful process. Standing meetings are short, sharp, and surprisingly effective. They keep everyone engaged, reduce wasted time, and help you get back to the work that truly matters. The next time you find yourself dreading another long, drawn-out meeting, remember this hack. Just stand up and watch how quickly things start to move. You wake up in the morning feeling determined to be productive. You tell yourself, today I'm going to get so much done. You grab your phone, maybe answer a few messages, check your emails, and then suddenly you remember you had an assignment due. You start on that, but halfway through you remember that you also needed to call your bank. While you are on hold, you notice the sink full of dirty dishes, so you quickly wash those. By the time you finally hang up, you cannot remember where you left off, and the day slips away in a blur of half-finished tasks. When bedtime comes around, you feel exhausted but also frustrated, because despite being busy all day, you did not really finish what mattered. This is such a common experience. We often think that the problem is laziness or a lack of motivation, but in reality, the issue is much simpler. Our brains are not designed to juggle everything at once. When we try to keep all of our responsibilities, deadlines, and small errands in our head, we set ourselves up for stress and forgetfulness. It feels like trying to balance 10 spinning plates in the air, hoping none of them fall. Most of the time, at least one does. We might forget an important deadline, miss a meeting, or simply waste mental energy worrying about things we have not done yet. The interesting thing is that we often underestimate how powerful it can be to simply write things down. Many people believe that they can rely on memory alone, that they will just remember later. But later usually turns into never. And when we do forget, we beat ourselves up thinking we are careless when the truth is, our minds were never built to store endless to-do lists. That is where the productivity hack of using checklists comes in. So let's talk about it. A checklist is exactly what it sounds like, a simple written list of tasks you need to complete, with little boxes or marks you can tick off as you go. At first glance, it might seem almost too basic. How can something so simple make such a difference in your life? But here is the secret. The power of a checklist is not just in writing things down. The real magic lies in how it frees your brain from constantly trying to remember what comes next. Instead of carrying the weight of dozens of tasks in your head, you can put that burden on paper or on your phone and let the checklist do the remembering for you. Think about it this way. When a pilot prepares to take off, they do not rely on memory alone, even though they are highly trained. They use a checklist. Why? Because in high-pressure situations, human memory is unreliable. The same is true for surgeons, astronauts, engineers, and countless other professionals. They use checklists because they know that even the smallest missed step can cause big problems. If checklists are powerful enough to guide people through life or death situations, imagine what they can do for your everyday productivity. In real life, checklists can be applied in so many ways. Let's say you are a student preparing for an exam. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the entire textbook, you can create a checklist of the chapters or topics you need to review. Each time you finish one, you tick it off. This not only keeps you organized, but also gives you a little rush of satisfaction with every check mark. That tiny feeling of progress motivates you to keep going. Or maybe you are someone who struggles with household chores. A simple checklist of what needs to be cleaned, from vacuuming the living room to washing the sheets, can keep you focused and prevent you from jumping randomly from one task to another. Even in your work life, having a checklist of your daily priorities helps you avoid the trap of being busy without actually being productive. There is even science behind this. A famous example comes from Atul Gawande, a surgeon who wrote a book called The Checklist Manifesto. He studied how hospitals reduced surgical complications by introducing simple checklists. The results were incredible. In some cases, complications dropped by more than a third. Something as basic as making sure every step was written down and checked off saved countless lives. Now, your personal checklist might not be as dramatic, but the principle is the same. When you rely on memory, things slip through the cracks. When you rely on a checklist, you reduce errors, lower stress, and increase the chances of actually completing what matters. Another great story comes from the world of aviation. Decades ago, Boeing introduced a new aircraft that was considered too complex for pilots to fly based on memory alone. Instead of giving up, they created detailed checklists for every stage of flight. With those checklists, pilots were able to safely and confidently handle the plane, and it went on to become one of the most successful aircraft of its time. This shows that complexity does not have to be overwhelming if you have the right tool to break it down into steps. The beauty of a checklist is that it is flexible. You can make it as short or as detailed as you want. It can live in a notebook, a sticky note, or an app on your phone. The format does not matter nearly as much as the habit of using it consistently. Start with something simple. At the beginning of the day, write down the 3 to 5 most important things you want to accomplish. As you move through your day, check them off. You will notice how much lighter your mind feels because you are no longer carrying the mental load of remembering everything. Of course, checklists are not about perfection. You might not always get through your entire list, and that is okay. The point is to give yourself a clear path so you know what to focus on next. It prevents that paralyzing feeling of not knowing where to start. Instead of spinning in circles, you can look at your checklist and take the next step with confidence. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, try this hack. Create a checklist. It might sound almost too easy, but that is the beauty of it. Productivity does not always come from complicated systems or fancy tools. Sometimes the simplest habits are the most effective. A checklist keeps you grounded, focused, and motivated. It turns chaos into clarity and transforms busy days into productive ones. In the end, productivity is not about doing more things. It is about doing the right things without losing your sanity along the way. And one of the easiest ways to do that is by using a checklist. Give it a try tomorrow morning. Write down what you want to accomplish, and as you check off each item, enjoy the small wins along the way. You will be surprised at how much lighter, calmer, and more accomplished you feel by the end of the day.